Well, good morning, folks. Welcome back. We are The Game. Um, that's Michael. I'm Luke. Today we're doing our second episode of Grade My Crazy, where we talk about, put out some ideas of things that might happen, kind of lay a storyline of this and such idea happening, and then Michael's going to decide which are the crazy. Now, we're changing the format just a little bit from last week. Rather than going through the ideas one by one, we're going to have all 5 of the ideas listed. We're using our trusty tier maker, which we have repurposed to this purpose. And he's going to have to grade them all at the same time. The catch is he has to label one as an A plus, which is, for our measuring purposes, that's the crazy. Well, not an A plus, but an A. That'll be as crazy as it gets. And an F would be, that's not crazy at all. So we're trying a little different format this week. So once again, without any further ado, let's get started. So we have Shedeur Sanders probably needs to have something between 3,500 and 4,000 yards. And let's call it 22, 24 touchdowns and no more than 10 interceptions. And he could win Rookie of the Year, I think. Now, do I think that's going to happen? Not really, but here you go. That's option number 1. Then you've got the Browns, because of the intrigue that is Shedeur Sanders. They'll get 5 primetime games. Now, this is kind of ludicrous, I think, because it's the Browns. They shouldn't get 1 primetime game, probably kind of like my Cardinals. Next, we're moving on. The Jags had an okay offseason, rather under the radar. They moved up and got Travis Hunter, but other than that, they were really smaller moves. So I'm just going to have to put them here in the idea that they play in a somewhat winnable division that isn't running away from anything. And things go right enough, and they're able to pull off 10-plus wins this year. Next, we kind of mentioned this earlier off air. Washington, kind of the opposite of Jacksonville. They did several things in the offseason, but just things don't work. You're plugging in pieces that don't quite fit, let's just say, and they just aren't quite as lucky with Hail Marys and such as last year, and they somehow go 7-10 or worse. And last but not least, because I'm talking to a Dallas fan, that a Micah trade happens at any point between now and the trade deadline of 2025. So I realized when I put this in there, I was like, I could have been saying, oh, Micah gets traded anytime in his career. It's like, well, no. I just mean in like before the trade deadline of 2025. So there you go. I give you the floor. Just tell me what to do.
Well, let's just go one at a time here. Think back through them. Might as well start with the somewhat offensive, somewhat painful Micah option first. You know, it's funny. It's like, is there a scenario that I can see where that's possible at all? And the answer would have to be, yeah. I think the scenario would be a significant injury to Dak Prescott. Like something that is not a, hey, he'll be back next year. But yeah, he'll be back next year, but he's going to be considerably worse than, he's already peaked. He's well past. He's going to have a downturn for the next however many years. I do think that's pretty unlikely, significantly unlikely. So we'll see. Let me pause on that one. Washington's 10 losses. I think this is totally possible. Dallas. How much did it take for Dallas to lose 10 last year? Took their quarterback going down for 8 games, 9 games, something like that. So, it did not take a lot. Same, I think, for Washington. I think if Jaden gets injured, they're probably in the same boat. So I'm also thinking about where I'm grading each one of these because I only get 1 for each. I think I'm going to go ahead and just call it on Micah. I think Micah is probably the F. Wait, is that right? I'm trying to make sure I've got my own understanding of which way they are. I get them backwards so easily.
Least crazy,
yeah. Well, if it's the least crazy, then no, I think that we'd have to go with something else there. I think Washington would be the F then. Sorry. I think this is the least crazy, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Jags winning 10. I think this is possible. Like you said, there's a lot of change in that division, but I mean, what are the Colts this year? Where exactly are they going? Did they make positive steps? Are they still hinged on the same quarterback options? I'm not sure. Did the Titans really significantly change? Are they going to win more games, or is that two free ones? So I think this one's possible. I'm going to call this the B, the B. Or, I'm sorry, the D of the group. I'm still struggling. Let's see. The Browns' 5 primetime games. Whew. I mean, the Browns were particularly bad for sure last year. The other thing with that is the division there, and it's so rough already. You know, it's even if they took positive steps forward, how do they overcome that? I think this one's definitely unlikely, but then there's Shador. He's a big question mark. Like he's just a very big question mark in the league. You know, whereas the Micah situation is funny because he's a known, and so it adds its own level of challenge there because we know what he is. That's why he's a value. With Shador, we don't really know what he is. I think it's so difficult to equate college experience, college talent to the NFL. But then you've also got to come in. I don't envy any quarterback coming in having to start in that division. I think about how good Joe Burrow was and how beat up he got in his first season. So I think I think the chance of Shador winning Rookie of the Year is probably the least likely. So I think that's the A. Followed closely by the Micah trade is B. I do think that the Browns' 5 primetime games is highly unlikely, but I'm willing to throw in the idea that it's of the 3, it's more likely than the others. I think that's where I'm at. I'm curious though how you looked at these and what you took into consideration as you were putting them together.
Well, like some of the things, like what's crazy about them, different things. So it could be crazy that it actually happened, or is it crazy to suggest this far out that it happened? So for me, Shador Sanders wins is crazy on both fronts. It's crazy to suggest, but then if it actually happens that a 5th round rookie takes a terrible team and has good enough stats, so I agree with you on the A there. I felt like that one was maybe low hanging fruit. But some of these like have workarounds, right? Like the Browns 5 primetime games. You know, they may just be the almost incidental opponent of another team that they want to flex into a primetime spot or something like that. So they may get some extras there. But I 5 seems a bit rich. I could see 3 or 4, but I was 3, and also the schedule comes out next Wednesday, being the 14th of May. And we won't know who the starter is until much later than that. So they're going to have to decide. My guess would be they'll have a couple, and then they'll have some flexible games. Will they have enough to get to 5? Time will tell. The Jags had a few years back. I forget if it was 2021, I want to say, where they were just incredibly healthy. They weren't a good team, but they were really healthy. And they started out like 1-6 or something like that. And then they just hardly ever lost again. And that's kind of what it would take, I think, for them to get 10 plus wins. So it would be crazy in that, wow, look at all the things that lined up for them. And, there'd probably be some health. They'd be a really healthy team. And then on top of that, some young players, like that's where Travis Hunter is, of course. I mean, if Travis Hunter starts showing out on one side, let alone both sides of the ball, that would really help. So it's just they would need a lot of things to line up. So that's the crazy of that one to me is just how many things would have to line up. Can you see it? Sure, but it's just an awful lot. After that, Washington, we've talked about several times. They had a combination of they had a lot go right last year to what could go wrong year 2 that oftentimes goes wrong in year 2 with teams and new systems. Sophomore slumps, kind of getting to the law of averages with injuries and things like that. It seems like something that could happen. Now, I really don't think it's going to happen. I'm not saying predicting this. I'd say really they're like an 8 and 9 team. So, but I mean, I guess that's one more loss. And then the Micah trade, I kind of agree with you. I think really it's a combination of how their cap space looks, and not to mention they just brought in George Pickens, and he's in a contract year, and it's just like guys, you can barely afford to maybe pay Micah Parsons, who's going to be 40 million a year. And then Pickens isn't a 40, but he's probably between 25 and 30. Like he's like a T Higgins level player to me. He's a different player than T Higgins, but he's a T Higgins level player. And that's about what he got. So I'm like, there's just no way you could afford another 67 million a year. So that's, I kind of agree with you on all of this stuff. And maybe it would have been a better thing for me to suggest like Micah Parsons gets traded to a specific team. Like he goes to, well, he's not going to go to the Eagles, but something ridiculous, right?
That would have been ridiculous.
To the Chiefs. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I enjoyed the list and it was some fun ideas.
I did too. Yeah, very thought provoking. There's some real challenging ones in there, and then there's ones that I think are more straightforward. So I definitely appreciate this particular list. It'll be interesting to see which of these, because I do feel like there are some of these that maybe at least one of these that will take place. It'll be interesting to see which one or more end up working out.
Yeah, well, but time will tell. So wrapping things up, tell us what you think down in the comments of these various things. Keep in mind, remember the grading scale. A is the absolute craziest, and F is there's no crazy involved here. That is absolutely going to happen, which in something like this may be the hardest thing to put out there because you have to suggest that something that's probably not going to happen is going to happen. But that's just it's just how it goes. So comments are appreciated. Let us know what you would do if you were in one of these scenarios or how you would grade this. And of course, we appreciate little clicky things like subscribes and such. So y'all have a great day. We will see you all next time.